name is Dr. Tiffany Rao, and I am from the Department of Special Education here at Cal State Fullerton. And I'm going to be talking about addressing big behaviors, specifically verbal threats today. This is part 2 of a four-part series. The first webinar, we discussed harmful behaviors, students who engage in harm to self or others. And so now I'm going to move on to verbal threats. Verbal threats, though, I'm also going to go into a couple of specific behavior strategies that could be applied beyond verbal threats. Specifically, I'm going to talk about social stories. I'm really excited about that because I love social stories, and leveled reinforcement. So let's get into it. Let's see. Is there anything else? Okay, let's go. So I'll open up with the verbal threats, and like I said, then social stories and leveled reinforcement, and then I will give you time for questions and answers at the end. However, if you think of a question as I'm going, feel free to just unmute yourself or raise your hand or put it in the chat. And I'm happy to ask questions about, answer questions about the content as I move along. Okay, and then you can access these slides with this QR code, and you're welcome to save them in case you want to refer back to them. I do have some links in the slides that you might want to access later. So I'll leave this up for a moment so that you can get to the slides. All right. Everyone got it? Anyone need me to go back? Okay. So let's start with, what is the purpose behind verbal threats? And by the way, what I'm talking about specifically here are students with IEPs, students with disabilities who sometimes engage in verbal threats. I'm not so much talking about other situations that are kind of on their own outside of special education. I'm really talking about the types of verbal threat behaviors that special education teachers deal with, either as with their own students or with students that are on their caseload that they are supporting, who are more in a general education class the majority of the day. Okay, so possible functions behind verbal threats could be, you're going to see the top 3 that we talk about in the function behind behaviors: attention, escape, communication. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's really attention, escape, and sensory are kind of those top 3 that we talk about when we're looking at a BIP, a behavior intervention plan, and we want to analyze the function behind a behavior. But there are some more nuanced purposes behind behaviors that I think can be very helpful to consider as well, that go a little bit, that I don't think are really well encompassed in just that attention, escape, and sensory. For example, communication. We do talk a lot about communication. It is often a form of communication, almost always really communicating a need. So you want to think about, what are these verbal threats really communicating below the surface? And then sometimes it's power or control. These are students sometimes that might not feel like they are in control of their lives or like they have a lot of power. And using verbal threats gets a reaction that makes them feel more powerful or makes them feel more in control. Sometimes it's a release of anger or frustration or fear. Saying something scary and shocking can feel like a very satisfying release. Other times it comes from fear, often comes from fear. They're feeling threatened, but for whatever reason, it depends obviously on the situation and the student, but something has made them feel threatened and feel fearful. And so they are acting out with their words. We see this with other students where they're acting out with causing physical harm to themselves or others, like I discussed in the last webinar, but verbal threats can be a different form of that. And then sometimes It could be sensory or neurological. So there could be words that sound threatening, and the student has Tourette's, and it is a manifestation of Tourette syndrome. And in those situations, you probably wouldn't be using the ideas that I'm going to share with you today, because it's really very much out of their control. If that's the function behind the behavior, it's just a neurological thing that their brain is doing, and we have to kind of go with it and ignore it the best that we can. Over time, students with Tourette syndrome do learn to gain some better control, but at the same time, like as a society, we have to kind of just let some of that stuff go. And then sometimes it's a sensory thing where it feels good to say these words, and it is intentional, not like with Tourette's when it's not so much intentional, but it is intentional with the intent to get that kind of satisfaction that comes between either saying the words, the way that it feels in their mouths, or the way that it sounds coming out. It's almost a sensory thing behind it. Those are some of the hardest behaviors to change. But it's really important to commit yourself to finding out the function behind the behavior so that you can best address the behavior in an effective way. Because if you think it's for attention, but it's really more of a release, then you're going to be going at it from an attention kind of standpoint, and it's not going to be effective, because we need to help our students meet the needs they're trying to meet with these negative behaviors and give them better ways to meet their needs. All right. So how to respond? This is just very general, but first of all, do respond. So I'm talking about threats that sound serious, threats that would be scary to hear. I'm not talking about little threats like, I'm going to throw my books on the floor or whatever. Like, I'm talking about things like threats to people's safety, clear, direct threats. This is not the time to assume it's attention seeking and ignore the behavior. Think, I'm not going to give in and I'm not going to give them what they want. I'm going to ignore this behavior. Nope. Whether you believe they will act on it or not, it's your ethical obligation to respond and take it seriously, because we really don't know. If they would act on it, if they have the means to act on it, we owe it to everyone around to take it seriously. You want to speak to the student and explain the seriousness of their comments, that these could be considered a threat and cause serious problems. Of course, you would do this in a way that they can understand at their level of communication, but you want to communicate that this is serious and that they cannot say these things. Not that this alone is going to stop the behavior, but you've still got to do it and kind of set that stage that you are not okay with this. You can explain that it's okay to be angry, but we have to learn to express our anger in a way that doesn't scare other people. So this is the step where you're validating that underlying feeling. You're assuming that it's anger. That's probably a safe assumption, or whatever you think it might be. It's okay to feel scared. But then you're about to teach some replacement behaviors that you expect them to use instead. So you're communicating that to them, and then that you will help them learn ways to express how they're feelings in ways that are not harmful and will let you help them better. So again, you would need to communicate this in a way that the student could understand, whether they're kindergarten or high school, and whatever their developmental level is. I'm communicating it in a way that, I know that you'll understand, but you would need to tweak it so that it's more kid-friendly. But these are the messages you definitely want to convey first and foremost. After a serious threat, verbal threat has been made, you're going to need to communicate with key team members. The principal would be the first one. Inform the principal immediately if you think there could be a serious potential threat. Also get the school psychologist on board, make sure that they are aware of what's happening. Ask whether a behavior intervention plan should be initiated if there's not one in place already. If there is one in place already, then definitely review that, which you would have already if you're the case carrier, and just see if it might need to be revised or have this added to it. And you want to get their input on how you can respond next time and what strategies to put in place for now. A school psychologist has definitely had some training in these areas, so they should have some helpful ideas that you can try. And then you're also going to want to contact the parents and let them know. Now, some factors to consider is the student's age, their history of aggressive behavior, and whether they have possibly the ability and the intent to follow through. You might decide, okay, that was really scary, but the student also told me they watched a movie over the weekend, that maybe that's where it came from. So maybe you're not going to quite go this deep because you think this isn't in line with what I know about the student. It's actually very out of character. I think they had a moment of frustration and they used, something they heard from a older sibling or a movie. And I'm going to talk to the principal and the parents, but I'm not like super concerned at this point. But if it was like, I'm going to bring a weapon to school, I would take that seriously no matter what. So again, just use your judgment, but you definitely want to at least communicate with these people at the minimum, the principal and the parents. And just by the way, I have everyone hidden so that I can read the slides. So if you do raise your hand, I won't be able to see you. So just please feel free to unmute if you have any questions. Let me pause for now. And as I mentioned, keep any specific situations that you would like to ask about until I stop recording at the end. But does anyone have any general questions so far about the content that I have shared? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you do, or feel free to put it in the chat. All right. So that's kind of the basics about verbal threats. I shared so much prior that really applies to verbal threats as well. So I'm not going to repeat what I shared in the last webinar, but certainly responding with a level of curiosity and compassion is an effective first step to de-escalating some of these types of behaviors. So I talked about things like that in the first webinar. That definitely still applies here. Now I want to get into social stories because social stories can be very effective for verbal threat behaviors and, oh my gosh, almost any other behavior that you can think of. If you are not familiar with social stories, please spend some time checking them out. You will be very glad that you did. They were developed by Carol Gray, and I linked her website here if you have access to those slides. And you can check out her website. But basically, social stories are short, personalized narratives that help students, particularly those who are neurodivergent, who have autism, ADHD, or any type of social communication challenges. And it helps them understand and navigate a variety of social situations. Let's see. I'm going to take you to Carol's website in just a moment. Let me go over the brief just introduction first, and then we'll check out her website. So the purpose is to teach appropriate social behaviors and responses, to help students understand social cues and expectations, and to reduce their anxiety in unfamiliar situations. The structure is there are descriptive sentences, so there's a certain way to go about it. typically you would be writing the social stories, but there are some that are available for purchase for common situations. So you don't necessarily have to write them. You might find some for free online as well. But it really works best if you do write them, if you learn how to write them and you write them, because then you can personalize it the best for that particular student. So it opens up with a descriptive sentence explaining the context of the social setting or the social situation that you're going to address. Then there are perspective sentences where you share the thoughts and feelings of others involved. So that might be where you would say, when I make verbal threats or when I say scary things, it makes other people feel scared. So you're sharing the perspectives of other people. And then directive sentences, specific suggestions on how to behave in the situation. So let me share my, okay, let me just share a different screen. One second, I want to show you, there we go, that website. Okay, so here is carolgraysocialstories.com. And you can read about the background, what is a social story, and how they are structured in more detail than I just went into. And there are samplers, sample social stories. And so I'm going to share one with you that is available on the website. It's called Safety Wherever I Go. And so you can see here's one of the descriptive sentences. Wherever I go, there is something or someone to help keep children safe. And it's filled with photos. So if you're writing a social story yourself, often you would include photos of the child and photos of the classroom and the real places that they are familiar with. So you could even write a social story just like this, but include actual photos from school that are related to safety or whatever. So it talks about the things that are in place, fences, ramps, railways. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I just want to show you big photos. Wherever I go, there's safety equipment that helps keep children safe. It gives examples and photo examples. And then it talks about laws to keep children safe. That's why we wear seat belts. Rules, when I'm at school, we form a line to walk safely from one place to another. This could be really helpful if you have a class like either an ESN class or very young students. You could read these types of social stories to the whole class or to small groups. They can be done for an individual student and read one-on-one by you or an aide, also sent home and read with parents. Or it could be something more whole group that a lot of your students would benefit from. So we're still at the descriptive sentences. Okay. Anyways, so this is kind of what it looks like. This is one example. There are a number of other examples, some of them very nuanced. What is a tragedy is another example. What autism means and what it doesn't mean. Helping students to understand their own autism if you're working with students with autism. So some really great samples that you can access on her website. So like I said, can be used with individual students or with groups, used in various settings, classroom, playground, family gatherings, and then read and reviewed regularly. This is not something that you would one and done. This is something you would read daily for quite some time until you're seeing an improvement in that behavior. And then you would go on more of a maintenance schedule where maybe it's once a week, couple of times a week, then once a week, and then a couple of times a month to really reinforce that learning. The benefits are enhances social understanding and interaction, builds confidence in social situations, supports emotional regulation, and reduces challenging behaviors. I have seen huge growth in my own practices as a teacher using social stories. I really, really loved them. They're fun and they just really make sense, especially to students who are neurodivergent. This is like a great tool to have in your toolbox. I'm leaving it on this screen because I'm going to go over to another website I want to share in just a moment, and that is AI Magic School. You can use AI to create social stories. You don't have to do it all by yourself. So let me show you. I used Magic School Plus to create a social story about making verbal threats, which I'm going to share with you in a moment. But first, I want to show you the Magic School website. I did link it also in the slides. I'll show you that in a moment, but you can see the address up here if you want to write it down. There's a free version and there's a ton of content available for free. You do have to set up an account, but there's a lot that you can access at no cost. And then they also have a paid version. Now, I think the Social Stories is free. I didn't sign up for a paid version, but they do give you access, I think, for like 1 or 2 weeks to a lot of content that later they'll make you pay for it. And I haven't reached that timeline yet. So I'm hoping the Social Stories is free. It looks like it to me, but I can't tell. So I favorited it and I will show it to you right now, what it looks like. So you would enter the grade level. I would enter the developmental level of your student. So if your student is in 4th grade, but is at a developmental level of more of like a 6-year-old, then you would probably put in 1st grade. Okay. And then you put the social situation event activity. So I'm going to just write making verbal threats in the classroom. And I'll keep it at second grade, and let's see what they come up with. I already did this actually, so I have this example in my slides, but I just wanted to show you exactly the words that I put in. So let me just read it to you. I am Sam. I go to school and I love learning with my friends. Sometimes I might feel upset or frustrated. When I feel this way, I might say things that I don't really mean. When I make verbal threats, it can make my friends and teachers feel scared. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. It's important to remember that words can be powerful. So you see, you have the descriptor and then the perspective. If I feel angry or upset, I can take a deep breath and count to 5. This helps calm me down. I can also talk to my teacher or a friend about how I feel. If I am confused, someone can help me find the right words to say. I feel happy when my friends and teachers are smiling and safe. It's nice that we can all help each other feel good in the classroom. If I make a mistake and say something mean, I can say I'm sorry to my friends. I will work on using kind words and asking for help when I need it. It's great that I can learn to express my feelings in a better way. When I use my words to share how I feel, everyone can understand me better. This makes our classroom a happier place. So I'm going to go back and let's make this pre-K. Let's see how that looks. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but these sentences are now simpler. I am in my classroom. Okay, I might edit that because that seems a little bit odd. My teacher is there and my friends are there too. It's nice to be together and learn. Sometimes I feel very big feelings. I might want to say mean words. Let's also check it out for older. Let's do 8th grade and see what that's going to look like. So a little more advanced. If I remember to use my words wisely, I will feel proud of myself. I will be able to build strong friendships and create a happier classroom environment. My teacher's always there to support me, and I can ask for help if I'm confused. So as you can see, the vocabulary, the structure is more at an 8th grade level. So I love this. I was really excited to come across this, and you can completely change it to whatever you might want to use, any behavior at all. So let me go back now. Okay. Can you guys still see the screen that I am looking at using AI to create social stories? Someone give me a thumbs up or raise your hand that you can see it. Okay, hopefully, yeah, thank you. Thanks, you guys. Okay, perfect. All right, so this is the one I just shared with you that I had generated already. And here is the link that you can access if you want to check out Magic School. And I just wanted to say a couple of other things. So best practices when using AI to create teaching tools or anything, the kind of basic rule is 80-20. You can go ahead and let AI do 80% of the work. That is perfectly fine. But you need to go in and number one, revise as though you're revising a peer's essay, pet paper, and see if there's anything that's just off or seems odd or doesn't make sense. So you're going to go and make sure there's no weird bias or something that could be offensive that, you know, just AI does some odd things sometimes, right? So you're going to want to go through it with your eyes and your lens and make sure everything looks good. Then you want to go through again and personalize it further because you know your student or your students, if you're writing one for the class, you know them best and you know what's going to make sense to them. You know their vocabulary level, their comprehension level. You might have said kindergarten level, but actually that's too simplified or not simplified enough. So you're going to revise it in that way so that it is comprehensible to your students individually. And you might decide, and I would encourage this, to put in very specific examples that apply to your student or students. So you're still going to do 20% of the work, maybe a little more than 20%, because I also encourage you to put photos. You can use stock photos, that's fine, but personalized photos are even better. What else? And then I just lost a thought. Hopefully it'll come back to me. I want to give you a couple of examples of how I have used social stories. So I used social stories for a student I had. She was a 2nd grader back when I was an SDC teacher. And I just really loved this student. So it puts a smile on my face to think back to her. She would go into the bathroom and she would go independently to the bathroom and sing very loudly because she liked the way that the bathroom echoed. So not a huge deal, definitely not a serious or harmful behavior whatsoever, but she did spend time in general education for part of the day, and she was kind of making some connections with kids in the general ed class. But when she would be in the bathroom and other kids would come into the bathroom, it weirded them out, okay, to hear this loud singing in the bathroom. And I felt that was interfering with her potential to make some friendships because that was a behavior that they just felt was odd and would kind of come out of the bathroom like laughing or just looking confused. Now, of course, we can talk to the kids and just kind of help them to like accept it. But I really wanted to make sure that she had some really pro-social behaviors because she was starting to make these friendships. So I wrote a social story for her about singing in the bathroom. So what she would do, oh, another thing she would do is not lock the door. So she would go into a stall and close the stall door, and then it would open up and she would just kind of go to the bathroom with the door open. So I wrote a social story about bathroom behaviors, specifically about locking the door and about not singing or singing very quietly, and where other places that we could sing and how that might confuse someone who's in the bathroom who hears sudden loud singing. So I did all of those parts. I'm just going to go back to the parts, the descriptive, perspective, and directive sentences. I recommend just looking at a lot of examples using AI, because that was a great example. They had all of these sentences in there. And then you can either write your own or see what AI comes up with and then revise it accordingly. Another one that I wrote for a student was about nose picking. They would pick their nose a lot. And so I wrote a social story about that as well. And for me, I drew stick figure pick illustrations. I like to draw. They were just really kind of simple, a little more than stick figure, but really simple drawings. And my students kind of seem to like that as well. So you could do that if that's something that you enjoy. But both of those examples were very, very effective and eliminated the behavior actually without any kind of reinforcement or like behavior plan. It was just explaining the whole social situation in a way that my students could understand better than just telling them, get your finger out of your nose, over and over and over again. That isn't typically very effective. This was much more effective. Any questions about social stories before I move on?
I have a question. Like you were saying earlier, we can give it to their parents, right? So we make it, and then they can take the social story if it applies to them.
I'm so sorry, Jola. I can't hear you for some reason. There is like a background noise that's happening. Can you repeat?
I'm sorry, I'm in a cafe, so it's kind of hard.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm saying we could give the social story to the parents if it applies to both.
Absolutely. You said to the parents?
Yes.
Yes. Um, Absolutely. If you can make a copy and send it home, I definitely recommend that so that you are hitting it across at least two different settings for better generalization. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Any other questions or thoughts? All right. Oh, I remembered what I was trying to remember earlier. Make sure that you keep these social stories, especially if they are specific to one student, somewhere private. We don't want these getting into the hands of students in other classes where it might, be made a joke out of or something like that. So just make sure that it stays in your classroom and it is in a safe place where it's not going to go out and get left on the playground or at the lunch table or anything like that, just to really protect your students' privacy. Okay, I am now going to move on to leveled reinforcement. And I said I'm going to try to end by 9:40. It might be 9:45. We'll see. So leveled reinforcement. Okay, this is something that just was such a game changer when I worked at a non-public school for students with serious emotional and behavioral disorders. At its most basic, it is the application of reinforcement at different levels of correct response, and no reinforcement when there is no correct response. Very effective for very stubborn behaviors, and it applies different levels of reinforcement to different levels of behavioral change. So that's very confusing, and I'm going to give you some specific concrete examples to try and explain it better. Okay. So first I'll give you an example that I used with great success. I had a student with autism spectrum disorder. She was a first grader in my SDC class. And we would come, I would have the students come to the rug, right? Where I would do a lot of whole group instruction at the rug. Stories, music, games, you've seen it, right? We all know what we do at the rug. And she would hang back on the opposite side of the room and kind of stem and twirl and sing instead of coming to the rug. And I wanted her to participate in our rug time activities because they were related to her IEP goals, and I wanted her to engage with me as the teacher and with the group. I wanted that engagement for her, obviously, right? So that she can access what we're teaching. And so I had a token board for her. Her motivator was Teletubbies. She loved watching Teletubbies. Yes, this was many years ago. And she loved Teletubbies. And so I made the token board Teletubbies. There were 4 Teletubbies plus that sun, the weird sun with the face. I shouldn't say that it's weird, but it was interesting. So there was the sun in the sky with the baby's face on it. So I made a token board with every Teletubby plus the sun because I wanted five tokens on it. This was a hands-on Velcro laminated token board. Just 5 boxes and the 5 Teletubby characters. My goal was for her to come to the rug and sit with us and look towards me so that she didn't have to make eye contact, but she needed to kind of at least look towards me so that I could get her engaging. If she came to the rug but stood up, she got 1 token, 1 Teletubby token. If she sat down, she got 2 Teletubby tokens. And then if she came to the rug, sat, and looked towards me, she got 3. Once she had all 5, she got to take a break, go to the back of the room, and do some bubbles or whatever. I can't remember what the reinforcement was. Bubbles now seems like it would be really distracting to the rest of the students. So I don't know if I did that, but I came up with something that would motivate her, that would be super fun. And then I stretched it out over time so that she was coming and spending more time at the rugs, but still earning these tokens and getting these breaks, but now spending longer stretches of time. She got it super fast. And she ended up being able to come to the rug and engage in the stories, in the songs and the dances and all of that great stuff. So that was a huge win. Another example is toileting. I had a student with Down syndrome who was in 4th grade and still not using the toilet. She was wearing diapers, even though her pediatrician and the school nurse assessed her and said, she is capable. Developmentally, she has everything in place. Cognitively, she has everything in place to use the toilet consistently, to get out of diapers. It was a stubborn behavior at this point. So I used leveled reinforcement. And I started out teaching it using a potty doll, where you give a doll a bottle of water and then you squeeze their tummy and they pee. And so if the doll went into the bathroom, they got like a sticker, like just some real low level reinforcer. Okay, just a sticker. If they sat on the toilet, they got to pick a little thing. I don't remember what was in this, but like these were a little bit better than a sticker. A little reinforcer, maybe it was like a goldfish or something. for sitting on the toilet. Okay, so it's a little better than a sticker for this student anyways. What this student found to be a little bit better than a sticker, the doll would get it for just sitting on the toilet and then squeeze their tummy, they pee in the toilet, then they get to pick a, a prize out of the really cool prize box. That's the best, right? And so she got it immediately, seeing what the doll could get. Now if she went straight to the toilet, sat down and peed, then we just went straight to the like high level reinforcers. I didn't do the sticker, like the whole thing. It was just if she just went into the bathroom and that was it, she'd get a sticker just for that. So I hope that makes sense. But then if she did all the way, she gets like the really cool box of prizes to choose from. It worked like a charm. It was less than a week, and she was finally using the toilet and never looked back. We had to do it again for bowel movements, but that ended up working. That took a little longer, but urinating in the toilet, that was a really quick fix. We had never tried this, and I learned about it at a training that I went to, and she was like the first person I wanted to try it on, and it was just so encouraging. We were all super happy for her. Now I'm going to share with you how I used it for my whole class in an in an EBD classroom, emotional behavioral disorder classroom. So in this classroom, there were a lot of major behaviors and unsafe behaviors, verbal threats, harm to self and others, the whole thing, all the big behaviors that I've been talking about in this series. So I initiated a 3-level class-wide reinforcement system. Everybody started out at level A, where you get all the best stuff. All reinforcements are available. Student gets to choose their seat every day. That doesn't work for every classroom, but it worked for mine. They get to earn points and use those points to shop at the class store every single day. And they get special free time activity choices that were only available to level A. They loved level A. Level A was for if they were getting, we had a whole points. I know I've shared this in my 482A class, but we had a whole point system. And if they got 80% or better on their whole day of points for staying on task, using safe hands, using safe words, a whole very specific system of a point system, they got 80% and there were no harmful behaviors, then they were in level A. For minor offenses, maybe they dipped under 80%, but they didn't like hurt anybody. Okay. They go to level B. Most reinforcements are available. Some are special just to level A. I'm going to go ahead and choose their seat. While they're in level B, they can still use their points to shop at the class store. They will still get basic free time choice activities, but they have to earn 80% now for 2 days in a row to go back to level A. Now for level C was for aggressive or other serious behaviors, eloping from the classroom, safety issues, that sort of a thing. Verbal threats would be in there. The student would be sitting separate from the group because they have not been showing safe behaviors around others. They can still earn points, but they won't be shopping in the store while they're in level C. They can save their points. I never take points away from them. They keep whatever points they earn. They will get basic free time choices, but they're going to do it at their seat. And they need to earn 80% for 2 days in a row to move up to level B, then 80% in level B to move back up to level A. This worked like a charm. It was a game changer for my class. It became a model in the school that I was at, which was a non-public school, for other teachers to follow suit because it was working so well. Students were very disappointed when they got to level C. Now, I will say we had supports that are not available in most public schools. We had behavior specialists that we could call and would be in our class in a matter of seconds for aggressive behaviors. So sometimes a student going to level C would reinitiate, kind of re-trigger some of those behaviors, and I'd have to call the behavior specialist. So if you don't have all of that, this wouldn't be applicable to probably most public school classrooms, but I wanted to share it as an example because it was very helpful. Okay, I am going to stop there And if you could please take 2 minutes to take the survey, and I am going to stop recording in a second, and then you can share with me any specific situations you like. If you don't have anything, you're of course free to go. But please take this survey. This helps us continue to offer these webinars. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. If you're watching this on YouTube, thanks so much for tuning in.